There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false.
Words from the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, as the Department of Justice is forming a task force to find out just how deep this Russia hoax rabbit hole really goes. I mean, getting crazier. Joining me now, Seamus Bruner, the Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute. He's also the author of Control Oligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Plot to Dominate Your Life. We're also joined by retired U.S. Army Colonel and former CIA Intelligence Operations Officer Tony Shaffer. All right, lots of moving parts with this Russia hoax revelation. You got the former DNI guy, James Clapper. He's lawyered up. There he is. The scandal, it's beyond politics if it's true, and let's say it is for now. Okay, you got Republicans joined with Democrats during Watergate. It was difficult, but they did it for the good of the nation. Now, clearly, I don't expect today's Democrats to put country over party, Seamus.
Yeah, not at all. And you see that the media coverage is the same as it was 8 years ago. They are running cover for the Obama administration. The conspiracy went all the way to the top. I mean, you had Clapper and Brennan as the intelligence chiefs feeding this information in, but Barack Obama is behind it all. You've heard James Clapper basically throw Obama under the bus and say he directed us to give this intelligence assessment. So the Democrats are circling the wagons. The media is circling the wagons. They're saying that this is also bizarre that Director Gabbard is releasing this information, but they're not covering any of the documents. They're just, parroting what the Obama team says.
Yeah, and of course, we can talk Epstein all day, and we don't have to cover something that's really a scandal in this country. Tony, I mean, I got to give you props. You were one of the first voices to call out Obama over this hoax. Break down Gabbard's report and how, honestly, you've been vindicated for what you've been saying since 2017.
Yeah, so the three things which are important to understand is, first, there's a confirmation that John Brennan and others lied under oath. That's very important. This is going to be not a lawyer, but a big-time predicate for the investigation that's coming. Second, the promotion, as James Comey actually admitted in one of his interviews, of unclassified information, that being the Steele dossier. That's one of the most interesting things, is that you had senior intelligence officers like Brennan, Comey, and Clapper all promoting what they knew to be a false narrative. And third point, the most important, that Barack Obama directed it all. And so it's interesting, and I know what Dan Bongino's talking about, I think, Rob, just so you know. During the first Trump administration, I'd gone to General Joseph Dunford, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mike Pompeo, the director of CIA, and I proposed that the Army, which the U.S. Army has parallel responsibilities for foreign counterintelligence, and I recommended they do a peer review of FBI's operations. Well, I think we all know what they would have found. I think that's what Dan has now seen, is what we would have seen. And guess who shut down that review? I went to John Kelly, because that's who I was told to go talk to, because we had to get President Trump to approve it. And John Kelly told me to my face, Tony, I will never permit you to talk to the president about this, because all you'll do is inflame his instincts. So apparently John Kelly didn't want us to get President Trump to do what we're now seeing done in real time.
So let me ask you to go a step further on that, Tony. Why would John Kelly, I know he was the gatekeeper at the time, clearly, and it's his job to ferret out what should or shouldn't get to the president, I guess. But this was something enormous.
Exactly.
Yeah, so why wouldn't this go to the next step, or why wouldn't he approve it?
That's what we don't know, because, again, one of his close friends, Joe Dunford, General Dunford, approved it, and so did Mike Pompeo. Mike had said, go talk to John. And I know this may sound strange, but we were all on a first-name basis back in those days. And when he said no, I was stunned. And I think we need to now examine, why didn't we know, Rob, more about all of this? Because this information was all available during the first term.
Why didn't Pompeo? He had direct access to the president. Why didn't he say something? A lot of people should have said something that had access to the president on something this big.
Absolutely.
Just before the 2016 election, the Times put out an article that said that the FBI found no link between Russia and Trump regarding the election. Then, of course, a month later in December, right before the inauguration, Obama convenes that meeting with, which is what we're talking about, members of his cabinet. And then they leak that there was interference from Russia when apparently there was not, according to those same people. So, Seamus, that then put into motion and gave the media cover to try and destroy Trump's presidency, which is, of course, what they did.
Yeah, exactly. And the New York Times was right back then. There was no link, which really begs the question, then why did they choose Russia? Why was it so important to tie Trump to Russia? And we actually know the reason. It's because the Obama administration, especially Hillary Clinton, had huge liabilities with Russia. Back in 2010, Obama, Biden, Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State had initiated this Russia reset where they gave Russia everything they wanted. It was an appeasement strategy. They gave them their spies back. They allowed the Uranium One deal to go through. And in 2016, this was a huge liability for Hillary Clinton and Obama. And so they decided to project their own liability onto Trump and make it this he said, she said thing. And then it had the benefit of getting FISA warrants and all the rest.
Could you imagine if George Bush's team did this to Obama's team? Tony, I'm seriously, could you imagine if that was the transition, what this country would have done and expected to have done, and the media back then or today, what would have happened? Or if Trump did that to Biden going in?
Yeah, this would have been covered 24/7. And frankly, the people who were responsible for taking Sedition Act, they would have been held accountable.
Yeah.
Probably in ways that would be way more severe than President Trump's going to hold them accountable. And this is where the double standard comes in. It's this constant belief by the left that anything they do to promote their political cause, it's okay. Don't worry about it. If anybody on the conservative side does it, it's the end of the world. But in this case, as President Trump said, he went easy on Hillary Clinton, which a lot of the folks in MAGA weren't happy about, But in this case, he said, I think enough's enough. Between you and me, I think we have to get to the bottom of this in a way that we can never permit it to happen again.
Yeah, and we will talk about Obama's protection right now because of presidential immunity. But let me ask you this before we go. The others, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, you name them, what happens to them, if anything?
Well, I think they are vulnerable. They acted. Rob, I was an intelligence officer trained by CIA as well as a serving Army officer. We're trained to not accept, quote unquote, illegal orders. You and I both know, we all know in this conversation, those were illegal orders. And those officers who swore an oath to the Constitution, Comey, Brennan, and Clapper, all violated that. At a minimum, it's sedition. It could be worse. This could be treated as some form of insurrection since it resulted in a coup d'etat, an attempted coup d'etat against the sitting president. And to that point, I think there were others within the administration who were part of this coup that were on the actual cabinet of President Trump. And I think that's where some of this is going to go next, is who exactly knew also that this was going on behind the scenes.
Well, the next step is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, what's done governmentally, and then how it's handled politically. Of course, the media is going to run cover for the left the entire time. But the truth, it's taken a while, but it's starting to come out now. Tony Shaffer, Seamus Bruner, hope you guys have a good Saturday.
Thanks, Rob.
All right.
Thanks, Rob.
A new